Once a month this year, Beat the Press was reporting on someone from a high-profile news organization who was forced to apologize for a reporting error or lapse in judgment. The missteps ran the gamut, and so did the punishments meted out by the bosses. From the famous to the infamous, journalists and talk show hosts found themselves at the center of the story this year.
You'll hear for the first time from a security officer who witnessed the attack.
Most prominent, CBS's Lara Logan, who was duped by a source who claimed to be a witness to the terrorist attack on the American compound in Benghazi.
The most important thing to every person at 60 Minutes is the truth. And the truth is, we made a mistake.
Logan and her producer were placed on leave.
Well, if we have information, an arrest has been made.
When CNN's John King had several facts wrong in the aftermath of the Boston Marathon bombings, he got a pass. Not so fortunate, 3 Associated Press staffers who reported that Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe lied to federal investigators. Turned out that was wrong. Veteran AP political reporter Bob Lewis was among the ones cut loose. MSNBC abruptly canceled volatile actor Alec Baldwin's show Up Late after he was caught on videotape shouting gay slurs at a paparazzo. Apparently, the network wasn't aware of his storied history.
Given her well-established reputation as a world-class idiot...
Also parting ways with MSNBC, Martin Bashir, after he suggested that, like a slave's punishment, Sarah Palin should be forced to eat feces.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say sorry to Mrs. Palin.
Bashir offered a lengthy apology and then disappeared. He later announced he was leaving the network. Wink, wink.
KTVU has just learned the names of the 4 pilots.
And finally, who can forget this faux pas? San Francisco's KTVU thought they had a scoop when they released the names of the 4 pilots involved in that Asiana Airlines crash that killed 3 people.
Captain Sum Ting Wong, Wee Tu Lo.
Oops. A producer realized almost instantly the scoop was actually a dupe.
We are sorry.
The station fired 3 producers for allowing the hoax to make air. Callie, I'm going to go way out on a limb and say that you would not have read those names. I just know it's not possible. But beyond this, I just got to say, this whole, I mean, everybody just clamors for everybody to get fired, no matter what the thing is. It can be something like that was, you know, somebody really duped them. That was really stupid. Fire 3 people. And there was people clamoring for Lara Logan to be fired. I mean, Lara Logan, I don't want to sound like too overly sympathetic because it was a bad mistake, but she almost gave her life for that network. You know, in I think it was 2011 when she was in Egypt and got brutally raped and mugged. I mean, you know, not every crime rises to that level.
Well, that's true about Lara Logan, and a lot of people have said that the reason that she didn't get harsher punishment was because of that, because that was a huge mistake on many levels, and it didn't help that SNL, Saturday Night Live, decided to make fun of it either, so which really sort of highlighted many areas of stupidity, which is just not something that you think about with not only Lara Logan, but with 60 Minutes, because they're the king of veterans. I mean, they do what they do so well. So I think that's a tricky one. And by the way, she apparently is back on the road now. So her suspension is over. Right. She and the producer. And it wasn't that long ago where Dan Rather and his producer were punished for, some would say, something slightly less.
People as high as Jeff Fager. Jeff Fager didn't get fired. He's the president and chairman and the executive producer of 60 Minutes.
Right.
But all those people at CBS were swept out when Dan Rather made his mistake.
Now, let me just say this about the Asiana thing. First of all, we can't forget that they got this information from an intern, remember? So, you know, first rule of journalism, and then listen, but for the grace of God go I, is to say, I don't know that the intern has the information. Why don't I get somebody somebody a little higher up? So got to say that too.
You know, it's interesting that Craig Silverman, who does the Regret the Error blog for Pointer, chose the Lara Logan incident as his #1 media mistake of the year, and it has been really this big deal. I still think Lara Logan may have a difficult time having a successful re-entry at CBS, but his #2 choice was that awful New York Post cover pointing to the wrong suspects on the bombers. Right. And it's, you know, we're not even talking about it. And why? It's because nobody takes the New York Post seriously. So part of this has to do with serious errors by reputable news organizations. And it almost is a commentary on the New York Post and some of these other less serious news organizations, that when they make an error, we care at the time, but then it's just forgotten.
Or the way that with the Supreme Court Obamacare decision, when CNN and Fox News both reported incorrectly, but CNN got all the blowback for that.
Right, because nobody expected anything different from Fox. Right. I mean, exactly.
I do agree with the general tenor here that I think news organizations have historically been too quick to fire people, to completely sever. You know, if you're a really high quality 20-year employee and you make one mistake, I think there should probably be some room for you to live past that one mistake and not to be sort of banished from the industry. I also think it's sort of an effect of the broader media about media discussion. The fact that, you know, while John King may not have faced actual punishment for his error in the Boston Marathon case, he faced a lot of opprobrium. He faced a lot of angry people who shamed him essentially. And there's a certain sense in which that might be a little bit closer to the right sort of response than saying, I'm sorry, you put in a good 20 years, but, you know, you got to go now.
And I want to just underscore and say, it's not just that people expect something of CNN. It's something people expected something of John King. John King has a brand for being reputable. John King has a brand for having the sources that would know. So when he made that kind of error, people are like, what? You know, that just turns your head around.
Yeah. Well, look, you know, we in the media have a lot of power, and people look to us for accurate, factual information, so we should be held accountable. Whether that involves firing everybody who screws up, that's another story. But while we're passing out blame and assigning guilt, let's save some for executives who decide that the race to be first is a paramount value of a news organization. I challenge whether that's really what mass audiences want. I think they prefer to get it right rather than to get it from you first. And let's also share some blame, though, for the customers themselves who do gravitate to and reward news organizations, media outlets that don't have standards, that in order to get something out there first will just throw caution and accuracy and editing values to the wind. We're all in this together, I think. It's sort of a, what's that phrase, a folie à deux, except it's more than deux. How do you like my French accent? Isn't it excellent? You know, we all, I think, should be held accountable.
There's also a syndrome, though, where people get fired. They get hired to do something, some kind of a shtick, and they get fired for doing it. And I would argue that was the case with Alec Baldwin. I mean, what did they think they were going to get with him? And Martin Bashir. They wanted him to be provocative.
Sure.
And that was a produced piece. They saw that before it went on the air. It wasn't
I have less sympathy for an Alec Baldwin. That's not a journalist. I don't, you know, he rises and falls, and that was a little extra gig for him. But Martin Bashir, that's a different scenario.
No, that was disgusting.
Yeah. One quick correction. You said Martin Bashir has now vanished into obscurity. He was there already.